Okay, so this time we're going to find the absolute value of -5 plus 2i. So here's what we could do, guys. We could go back to graphing this if you really needed to, graph at -5 and positive 2i. So we'd have a point, what's that? Sorry about that, guys. Negative, let me get this all labeled for us here. So we're going to have, this is -5, this is positive 2i. We've got our point right here. And what we have to do is we have to figure out how far that point is from the origin. That's our absolute value. And remember what we said we can do here is we can actually create a right triangle by dropping it perpendicular and then connecting back to the x-axis. And what we know about this is that the length of the vertical piece of that triangle is 2. The length of the horizontal piece is 5. Yes, we moved backwards 5. That tells us direction, but the length of it is 5. And if we want to figure out what this is, we can use the Pythagorean theorem, which just says 2 squared plus 5 squared equals, I don't know, what do you want to call that? We'll call that d, equals d squared. And then from there, you can pretty quickly simplify this. And we get 29 equals d squared, and then take the square root of both sides. And we get square root of 29 equals d. And I know some of you are saying, it's plus or minus d, Mrs. Kopp. But we're talking about length. Length has to be positive, so we only use the positive form of it. So that's our length. That's our absolute value. Now, you can do this with the formula, and we kind of wrapped up the video with this, a plus bi, to find the absolute value. It's just the square root of a squared plus b squared. So in our formula, a corresponds to the real component, whereas b corresponds to the coefficient of the imaginary component. So if I wanted to use that absolute value formula, I could do the square root of, and I would take -5. Let me do that in the same color here. That's our a value, -5 squared plus b squared, which is our the coefficient of the imaginary component. So 2 squared. Notice I don't include I there, right? And also notice that I have to make sure that I put that -5 in parentheses if I'm going to do anything on my calculator, otherwise it's not going to come out right. So when I multiply everything out here, I get 25 plus 4 underneath the radical, and that gives me a distance of square root of 29. So you could do this either way.